The Marine Corps of the United States has just unveiled what is seemingly a sci-fi film production, but is actually all too real and already under testing in the waters of Rhode Island. It's not a plane. It's not a boat. It travels at 180 miles per hour and only 30 feet off the ocean water, where it is low enough to avoid enemy radar, but fast enough to outmaneuver anything on the water. The Viceroy Sea Glider is based on technology developed by the Soviets in the Cold War. But America took it to another whole new level. Capable of evacuating wounded Marines, deploying special operators onto the enemy, and transporting 3,500 pounds of cargo, this electric-powered beast does not require a runway to do it. And it just had the first demonstration of its rescue mission last November. This is not a far-off dream. On March 2025, the Marine Corps Warfighting Laboratory awarded Regent Craft a $10 million contract to demonstrate the effectiveness of this technology in real war conditions. They refer to it as a sea glider, and it has 3 different modes that render it unique in the Army inventory. It rides on a boat, surges on hydrofoils like a WaterTech water ski, then pulls off those foils and flies in an area known as ground effect, that sweet spot above the water where physics is on your side. Chapter 1. What is so special about the Viceroy Sea Glider? We should discuss what is so special about this vehicle. To begin with the fundamentals, the Viceroy Sea Glider is 55 feet in length and a wingspan slightly less than 65 feet. It runs on 12 motors that are electrically powered, and 6 are positioned on each wing in what they refer to as a distributed blown wing layout. Not merely to be redundant, but safety is definitely involved. The motors use the air to pour over the wings during landing and take off, and the craft gets the additional lift when it is needed the most. The entire process uses batteries, and therefore zero emissions and much cheaper operations than fuel guzzlers helicopters or conventional airplanes. And herein is the kicker. It is 30 decibels less in comparison to similar payload planes. That is a huge tactical edge in making an inroad into enemy-controlled land without being spotted. It is the pace that causes the heads to turn. This thing is 180 miles per hour, but can travel 180 nautical miles on existing battery technology. It is about the same distance as San Diego to Los Angeles, except that it is in open ocean. Regent already has hybrid electric versions in development which may extend the range to nearly 1,000 miles. Chapter 2. The physics that makes it work. The magic now takes place in what is known as wing and ground effect, or WIG as it is commonly abbreviated. When a plane travels a distance of approximately a wingspan over the surface, be it land or sea, something interesting occurs to the physics. The air under the wings cannot easily escape, resulting in a cushion of higher pressure which increases lift. Meanwhile, the wingtip vortices which would otherwise generate drag are flattened and shortened. This translates to increased lift and reduced drag, translating to increased fuel efficiency and increased payload capacity than would be the case at normal altitudes of flight. This isn't new technology. Ekranoplans were massive WIG vehicles constructed in the 1960s up to the early 1990s by the Soviet Union. The most recognized was the KM, dubbed by CIA analysts as the Caspian Sea Monster, which they initially saw on satellite images and had no clue as to what they were seeing. That was huge, larger than a C-5 Galaxy transport aircraft, and was to fly low over the Caspian Sea with anti-ship missiles. The Soviets even developed the Lun-class Ekranoplan, which was capable of shooting cruise missiles when in ground effect flight. However, such programs ultimately failed, as the technology was hard to learn and the cars had grave constraints. The difference between Regent and the Sea Glider is the hydrofoil system. This is the innovation that addresses one of the greatest issues that previous WIG vehicles had. When you are in the air, attempting to speed up off the water surface to takeoff speed, you are doing with a huge drag. The hull is struggling out of the water, the waves are beating you, and it consumes a tremendous amount of power to bring it to the point of flying. The ancient Soviet Ekranoplans simply forced their way through it with huge engines. However, the attitude of Regent is wiser. Chapter 3. The three-mode operation that changes everything. The Viceroy starts out floating on its deep V hull at about 12 knots. Then, when it speeds up, retractable hydrofoils are used. These are wingfuls which are not above water, which bring the whole hull up out of the water as soon as you reach about 45 knots. You are now gliding on top of the surface with these foils, 5 feet above the waves and with greatly decreased drag. The ride levels off. You are no longer being pounded by the wave action, and the motors can be working on accelerating you to take off speed. When you go over 70 knots, you can retract the hydrofoils and you are flying in ground effect 30 feet above the water. This is a three-mode operation of genius. It has the effect of making the Sea Glider move about in busy ports like any other boat, in thick water pass to the hydrofoils and then soar on the open water at high speed. And since it can touch water and maneuver right beside survivors or a dock, it means that you do not need runways or landing pads or any of the infrastructure that restricts where you can fly traditional aircraft. In November 2025, the Marine Corps demonstrated this capability with a rescue demonstration. The scene was to fly into a rescue area, land on the water, and to maneuver with the survivors and board them and fly out once more. The interior design could be designed to accommodate 3 beds and complete medical facilities, making the Sea Glider a flying ambulance that performs where helicopters falter. The roomy cabin is 746 cubic feet, and this provides space where the medics can treat patients when they are on the road. Each seat has large windows which offer an unrestrained view of the water flowing beneath. Chapter 4. What the Marines really want to do with it. The three-pronged mission, which is included in the $15 million contract, includes contested logistics in the maritime environments, medical evacuation, and casualty evacuation, as well as special operations infiltration and exfiltration. First, let's discuss logistics. Marine Corps is also redefining the way it combats in the Pacific. The previous model was constructed based on the amphibious assault ships that were large and had thousands of Marines who would storm the beaches in huge groups. However, those giant ships have been rendered extremely susceptible by the modern anti-ship missiles. This new concept is known as Expeditionary Advanced Base Operations, EABO in short. The concept here is to deploy small groups of Marines to dozens of small islands and atolls so that they can hardly all be targeted by an enemy. However, that poses a huge logistical issue. What do you do to feed, water, and equip all those scattered teams? It can be done by traditional helicopters and V-22 Ospreys, but they are slow, have a limited range, and are costly to use. Even more vulnerable and slower are boats. The Sea Glider will provide a compromise. It is faster than any boat, has a longer range than most helicopters, and can be used anywhere on the ship or shore without special equipment. It is able to take off and land within up to Sea State 5 conditions that is waves of up to 13 feet. See what you can do with a helicopter. In the case of medical evacuation, time is of the essence. Fight injuries must be medically attended to within the golden hour. This is the 60 minutes after the injury, where excellent medical attention is the only difference between life and death. The speed of the Sea Glider is 180 miles an hour, which implies that you can cover long distances in a few minutes and not hours. Chapter 5. Special Operations Angle. Then there is the Special Operations perspective, and this is where it becomes really interesting on the tactical perspective. Special operators are required to enter and exit areas without a lot of noise and in a bid to move at a fast pace. The Sea Glider is flown 30 feet over the water so that it is below most radar and above sonar. It's electric, so it's quiet. It does not require a runway, thus it is able to insert and extract teams on distant coastline, small islands, or even directly on the ships at sea. And it being so quick, it could get the operators into and out of the way before the enemy had ever heard of them. The vehicle is capable of being charged on any electric power source shore power. ship power, and even portable generators. This fuel autonomy is a novelty in the operations of Pacific, where the conventional fuel distribution systems are susceptible to attack by the enemy. You do not require tanker trucks, fuel bladders, and complicated logistics chains. Simply plug it in and charge it up. Chapter 6. The Bigger Picture DARPA and the Future. The Marine Corps isn't the only one paying attention. Since 2021, DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, has its own WIG program called Liberty Lifter, a much larger endeavor of building a C-17 type aircraft with the ability to carry tanks and armored vehicles and travel in ground effect as that. It is being developed by Aurora Flight Sciences of Boeing. And, unlike the Sea Glider, Liberty Lifter is capable of flying as high as 10,000 feet where it is required, though it is optimized to fly low. Provided that program is successful, you might witness whole mechanized units operating across oceans without ports or airfields. Liberty Lifter specifications are great. DARPA is looking forward to a vehicle capable of carrying a similar weight as a C-17 Globemaster, that is approximately 270,000 pounds of cargo. It must be able to take off and land on water in up to sea state 3 conditions, cruise at 300 to 400 knots, and have a range between 7,500 and 10,000 nautical miles under either ground effect or normal altitude conditions. Such an ability would radically alter the manner in which America broadcasts power over the Pacific. But that Sea Glider is not coming in a few years, but today. Regent has already gained over 10 billion commercial orders worldwide by airlines and ferry operators. The company was invested in by Japan Airlines. So did the Founders Fund of Lockheed Martin and Peter Thiel. Orders have been made by Mesa Airlines, Makalele Airlines, and Southern Airways Express. A private members club by the name of XXV has recently ordered 30 Viceroys to route to Miami and New York City. Chapter 7. The Misdeeds That No One Speaks Of. We should discuss the issues since nothing this grandiose comes without troubles to resolve. The largest one is certification and regulation. The Navigational Safety Risk Assessment by Regent has been passed by the U.S. Coast Guard, thus giving them the freedom to test with humans on board. The Viceroy, however, is in the gray area of regulation. Naval Sea Systems Command believes it can be classified as an aircraft due to having wings. Naval Air Systems Command believes it is a boat since it does not ever fly above the water more than 1.5 wingspans. Then there's the question of operating in rough seas. Sea State 5, in which the Sea Glider can take off or land, is impressive. But what about a Pacific typhoon? What would occur if you had to work under Sea State 7 or 8 conditions where the waves are above 20 feet? The existing design is not designed to do so, and it is not evident that the future versions will be capable of coping with extreme conditions. The Deep V hull aids landing stability, and the hydrofoils ensure you are above the worst of the wave action when accelerating, but there are limits to what any vehicle can cope with. Another constraint is battery technology. These 180 nautical miles is okay in coastal operations and island hopping in such destinations as the Philippines or Indonesia. However, to cover long-range missions over the vast distances of the Pacific, you will require either better batteries or you will have to be hybridized electric with conventional engines that will give you the long-range capabilities. Regent is working on both options. The range may be extended to over 400 nautical miles with next-generation battery technology. Hybrid electric setups would be capable of reaching that 1,000 nautical mile range, and this would open up whole new mission profiles. Vulnerability is another issue. When flying at 30 feet above the water, you are under most radar but is fully visible to detection. Any vessel or plane that notices you can take on board guns or missiles or anything they possess. The Sea Glider is unarmed and lacks defense weapons. It is constructed to be fast and stealthy, not to fight directly. That is okay in a lightly defended or uncontested setting, but what about when you are in a high-threat space and sophisticated air defenses are in place? The solution is most likely that you operate the Sea Glider on missions where speed and low signature are an advantage, and you operate other platforms where you need survivability. Chapter 8. The Humanitarian Potential. Nonetheless, the opportunities here are monumental. Consider humanitarian activities in the wake of a typhoon or tsunami. The conventional means of relief works are based on helicopters and boats that take days or weeks to arrive at the remote islands. A sea glider would be able to bring medical supplies, food, and rescue personnel within hours of a disaster. It is able to evacuate the injured individuals in the places where the runways and ports are destroyed. The abilities that make it useful in military operations make it exceptionally useful in responding to disasters. History: the amphibious innovation of the Marine Corps dates back decades. Since the first row-deep alligator tractors were used in World War II, the Corps has been on the edge of innovation when it comes to ship-to-shore operations, with the LVTP-7 serving more than 40 years. The amphibious assault vehicle that recently retired in May 2025 was a workhorse, but was slow and vulnerable. Its replacement was to be the Expeditionary Fighting Vehicle, a high-speed amphibious vehicle capable of reaching 25 knots on water, but due to cost overruns, that program was cancelled in 2011. The new amphibious combat vehicle just entering service is a better one, yet it will only do 7 knots in water, the same as the one that it replaces. The Sea Glider is a totally new concept. You do not attempt to make a vehicle that will not only be a good land and water vehicle, but make a maritime one and leave the land part to other vehicles. It is an understanding that the Pacific Theater needs special equipment in special operations. The manufacturing plant in Rhode Island of Regent is already being constructed. The company is recruiting engineers, technicians, and production workers. The deliveries of customers will start in 2026 or 2027. This is not an idea that is in the research stage. It is headed towards production. And, with some luck, you might be able to find these things in commercial operation in a few years. The military uses will probably require a little longer. The Marines have to prove the technology by conducting lengthy tests, create doctrine on how to use the technology, and train the crews to use and maintain the technology. However, the groundwork is being prepared at the moment. The Viceroy Sea Glider is an embodiment of American innovation, stealing an idea the Soviets had but failing to refine and transforming it into a workable, multi-purpose vehicle, which addresses actual issues. The Marine Corps is placing huge bets on this technology since they are viewing the future of war as being a distributed operation in large ocean areas. The birth of a completely new kind of transportation that will potentially transform the way wars are fought and people traveling in the coastal areas around the world is what we are witnessing. In case this video made your eyes open to the future of military technology, then do yourself a favor and press that like button and subscribe so you do not miss our next video.